All right, friends, before we close the program, I want to bring an update from the World Health Organization. And Jim Roguski, who's a member of the Law and Activism Committee at the World Council for Health, is joining me now. And there's so much going on. As you've watched the program this week, Tony had Congressman Chris Smith on yesterday, Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann earlier in the week to discuss this. Jim, I want to thank you for joining us this evening on Washington Watch. We appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I still recall very fondly a conversation that I had with Congresswoman Bachmann more than a year ago when she first found out about this after I had reported on it. She had me on the phone for 3 hours. She wanted to know every last detail possible, and she's still out there fighting the good fight, reporting from Geneva. The news that I have is they have released, or I've obtained, a new revised version of what they refer to as their CA+, but most people call it the Pandemic Treaty.
Okay, so you have a copy of it. What kind of horrifying information can you share with us? What are the things that we need to be alarmed of?
They've made it worse, and they've had many versions. They had an initial version and then a conceptual zero draft and a zero draft. And now they have what they call a bureau's text. Now, I see some good news in here. There's some bad news as well. The good news is that they were hoping to present a first draft at this meeting, the World Health Assembly this year, and I feel that they've absolutely failed miserably. They put a call out back in April, and a bunch of nations, put in more suggestions. So the proposed treaty has expanded a bit, and what they've added in the various sections, instead of it seeming like it's all uniform, they said, well, it's almost like a poo-poo platter. In Article 7, you can choose from option A, B, or C. And in many of those, the option C is none of the above. And so I think it indicates that the WHO, in many ways, has sown the seeds of its own destruction. All of the individual nations are basically, gimme, 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 gimme. We want this, but another nation wants the opposite. And so they've relented, and they've said, well, somebody wants option A, somebody wants option B, maybe somebody doesn't want any of the above. Now, one of the negative things that they did is there had been something in there that said, well, if nations have paid for research and development, they should recoup the gains from that and not give all the money away to corporate, interests. And that got washed aside. And so one of the other things that they did is they shuffled all of the numbers of the articles. And so now everything looks different. They put everybody through this headache of trying to figure out what's going on. But here's what I really think is going on. That's a distraction from the amendments to the international health regulations, which are a second path that they're going through. They're trying to amend existing regulations, and that has been under lock and key since September. They proposed all of this way back on September 30th. They revealed it in the middle of December. And no updated edition, to my knowledge, has ever been presented. And so, the media is really good at distracting you with what they want you to pay attention to. You have to look and see what they're not talking about. And the main thing that nobody's talking about is they actually did adopt amendments last year that we still have 6 months that we can reject them, but not a single member of Congress had said a word about the fact that amendments happened last year.
Well, and partly it's because it is such a secretive thing. And one of the issues that I hear about of greatest concern to everyone is the loss of U.S. sovereignty over all of that. We're talking a treaty here. We're not talking a resolution. This is a treaty that carries enormous surrender of our sovereignty. Isn't that correct?
And you used the correct word. This is being pushed by the Biden administration. It's not necessarily an attack upon the nations. The United States is giving up sovereignty. I mean, they're proposing the amendments, they're proposing the treaty. They quite frankly started this process back in January of 2022. And so, my work has been to research and dig into what, they're doing. They try to hide it. It's a little bit of intrigue to find their documents and expose them. But I encourage everybody to take action because, I'm optimistic that we can reveal what they are doing by shedding light on it. And
okay, Jim, let me go down to this. We've got less than a minute. I've got about 35 seconds. Can this be stopped? How can it be stopped?
They're not going to vote on it this year. We have a year, and they only have 8 months till January. They have to do the amendments till then. I encourage everybody to go to exitthewho.com. The ultimate answer is when you're dealing with an organization that's trying to take over the world, you can try to negotiate for better terms, or you can just head for the door and leave. So exitthewho.com is where information is about how we do that.
Exitthewho.com. Jim Roguski, thank you so much for joining us on Washington Watch this evening. We appreciate you bringing us the latest as what's happening in Geneva.
Thank you for having me.